I'm Dr. Jim Paharic. I'm the director of our National Catholic Center for Holocaust Education at Seton Hill University. And I'm very happy to be here today with Sister Patrice Hughes. And Sister Patrice is a sister of charity at Seton Hill and is very familiar with the founding of our center. As you just reminded me, Sister, 1987, so 33 years ago. And of course, you know Sister Gemma and Sister Noel very well, who were involved in the founding. And I'm eager to talk to you today to get some insight into our outreach to schools K through 12. Because our mission at the center is to educate the public about the Holocaust and Judaism, and to deepen and strengthen Jewish Catholic understanding, but specifically where our goal is to work with the Catholic population and with Catholic schools. So we are working with Seton Hill and other universities to promote understanding of the Holocaust and Judaism, but also with schools in the local region, the Diocese of Greensburg, for example. So, Sister, I know you've been a teacher and principal at many different schools, and most recently you've been an administrator with the Diocese of Pittsburgh. So you have a long experience with Catholic education. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about, from your point of view, why it's so important for Catholic students to learn about the Holocaust.
All right. I think the reason being that we are all called to respect life in everyone. And I think looking at the genocide and realizing how that was so against our principles, certainly our principles in the Catholic faith. And one of the things I'm really pleased about is the opportunity to bring in rabbis and other Jewish educators into our high schools. Most of my experience has been in high school. The Diocese of Pittsburgh, under the superintendent, Bob Pesarbo, this was in the early part of this century, that he established a program called CJEEP, Christian Jewish Educational Exchange Program. And so in all of our high schools, plans were made to invite either an educator or a rabbi to come in at least during one particular semester, talk to the students about the relationship between Christianity and Judaism, and then to talk about the terrible Holocaust event. In my research about how, what shall I say, attitudes and actions are so well distinguished before the age of 18. And I think it's a golden opportunity to affect students to think. And I recently came across a wonderful quote by Richard Rohr, and he says there, "We learn and are healed by committing ourselves to others." And in this contact with the Holocaust, that those terrible actions that took place have to be known about, but also to give students the tools they need to think broadly, to always be guided by respect for one another. And I think I'm a little prejudiced, but I think the opportunity to do that on the high school level, even though there uh, we're competing with sports and dances and all those things,
Mhm.
but at least there's enough time and opportunity. And I just want to share one short story that
Sure.
I heard recently about the CJIB. The A teacher at one of our high schools took our students to the Jewish Community Center where the rabbi from Tree of Life and some of their
Yes.
students
Mhm.
were present.
Mhm.
And it was just, according to the person who reported this, it was just a wonderful. And then inviting the students to share their reaction. At the end of it, a mother came in to uh, pick up her daughter. And the little girl said, "Oh, Mom, I want you to meet my Catholic friends." I thought that really says how important this program is to our schools. We haven't really explored it uh, on the elementary level,
Mhm.
but um, one of my former students, who was the director of research at Georgetown University and brother of the president of Duquesne, wrote a book about it's in preschool that attitudes and habits are best formed. So
Indeed.
we
Yeah.
might look into that in the future.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that story and for your insights. I agree that we have an opportunity with students K through 12 to reach them. And by the way, I knew Bob Paserbo, and I knew about the program that they started in the Diocese of Pittsburgh, and we want to do something like that here in Greensburg. I think it's a wonderful model to pair a
Mm-hmm.
rabbi with a priest or a Catholic
Yes.
religious person,
Mm-hmm.
and to show how much, in fact, we have in common in our
Yes.
two faiths.
Yes.
So,
I would suggest
mhm,
contacting Maureen Marsteller, the
yes,
superintendent of schools,
mhm,
because she previously worked for the Diocese of Pittsburgh,
yes,
and her associate, Sharon. They would be very open
mhm.
to forming, of course, now, and I would say probably Bishop Malesic would be too, but he's leaving.
Yeah, that's sad. But yes, I do know Maureen and Sharon, and we've had conversations.
Good.
But yes, thank you so much for those insights. And I think that for me, we were talking before the camera started about the fact that the center is over 30 years old now, and that it was needed then, but even more now, it seems,
Yes.
sadly. The work that we do is so desperately needed in these times where it seems that racism and prejudice are on the rise. And so we can address that through our Catholic schools. And hopefully, by learning about the Holocaust and what happened there, students will take those lessons and apply them to the world around them and
Yes.
realize that the dangers of bullying and discrimination and prejudice, those haven't disappeared. That's still part of the world we live in.
Hmm. And I believe the time is right now, especially with the recent death of John Lewis,
Mm,
where his goal was always to establish a beloved community. And the fact that sometimes, and a wonderful expression he had was to get into good, bad trouble. So to take a risk. And I think and I would say teenagers are pretty open to those kinds of ideas.
yes, yes. Well, that's John Lewis is a wonderful example to all
Oh,
of us.
yes,
Absolutely. There are many lessons around his life that we can teach.
yes.
And it just reminds me that in our center, we've been doing videos recently with local upstanders
Mm,
and people who speak out against
yes,
injustice
right.
and racism and discrimination. And I think that our goal maybe in the Catholic schools is to help to form our students to be upstanders like John
Yes.
Lewis was.
Mhm. Yes, very good.
Mhm. Well, Sister, thank you so much for being part of our video conversation. And I just would ask you maybe a final question, which is, you've had such a long and distinguished and wonderful, fulfilling career. And I'm just wondering what the next step is for you.
Well, uh, my official position ends on July 31. But
Mhm.
as I said, I have too much chalk dust, lead, and ink in my veins that I will not walk away from education. So I'm going to volunteer, especially working with school boards where that is a great interest of mine. And I'm constantly reminded of how these people give of their time, their talent, and
Yes,
right now we need the treasure. And
absolutely. We
thank you.
do.
I appreciate being asked.
Well, it's been delightful, and I appreciate being with you. And I would say you're a blessing to us at Seton Hill and to the entire community. Your life and work have been a great blessing. So thank you very much, Sister.
My pleasure. Thank you.